Before then, we're going to be hearing from our keynote speaker. So she's one of the most influential women in the UK energy market, having worked for more than 30 years right across the sector as a fuel expert, power station manager, head of energy trading, member of various executive boards. And in 2013, she joined the REA as its chief executive. And she's been at the forefront of Britain's renewable energy revolution ever since. So here to give us her take on the nation's transition to net zero, please give a warm welcome to Nina Skorupska.
Okay, what an intro. That's thank you, Luke. Forefront, disrupting the industry. Yeah, you gave away my secret. I've kind of worked in energy a long time. You know, my hair colour, it really belies the greyness of having worked in the energy sector for so long. That should actually be there. So I'm Nina Skorupska. The REA is the Association for Renewable Energy and Clean Technology. And I'm proud and privileged to be its CEO for the last 6 years. The REA itself has been around since 2001 and was engaged initially just looking at trying to promote renewable power, almost like in parallel to the British Wind Energy Association that had got itself going in the 1990s, and as well as all the other trade associations looking at combined heat and power and things like that. So we got going looking at landfill gas, biomass power, solar, and then it became heat, transport, and now we represent everything that you could consider that's around renewable energy and clean technologies. So we have members, over 500 of them. Some of you are in the room, I'm pleased to say, who work right across renewable energy, recycling, energy storage, EV charging sectors, and our job is to be your champion, to do some of that heavy lifting of talking with government and to help persuade them. So Luke asked me to come here for the next 15 minutes to say, well, net zero, what's that all about? And what does that mean for you? And at the REA, we've been talking to our members who finally have got a little bit excited because even though we are in another general election and nothing not dissimilar to the various political parties, we've put a copy of our manifesto on the table, not one for everybody because I know you won't all want to read them, but in there, is this the right time, with the right place, with the right environment for us to make that difference? And also the question I want to pose to you, how important do you guys feel sat in this room today? Because many of the aspects in terms of delivering renewable power or low carbon power, the way that our government or the preceding government talk, you would believe that we've already done it. We've been there, done that. We're the world leaders in delivering a low carbon future. But I'm sure some of you will be aware that we're only round about 35% on a good day, 38 sometimes when it's very windy, renewable power on the system. Low carbon, we could add the nuclear to it. But is that going to be enough to meet net zero? Here we are in 2019 coming up to 2020. So for me, the questions I want to pose to this fantastic audience, because if you're already here in this meeting room with Luke and Edie, you already are identified as the energy leaders. You've already dipped your toe, or you are leading experts in your sectors of knowing what are the important aspects to deliver that. I beg that the fact that we are only in the foothills of the mountains that we yet have to climb to even embark on net zero. So whilst power is going pretty well, and we've got recent auctions, and you'll have heard on the news around the recent auction of the pledge from offshore wind that could be built in 2023, 2024, coming in at £40 a megawatt hour. These are incredible numbers when they're actually potentially lower than what we may be thinking in the future wholesale power prices are likely to be. So is power just enough? because you will attend lots of different meetings, and I attend them too on many of our members' behalf, and we think that heat and transport, all we need to do is electrify it. But that's definitely not the answer either. I think the growing question and the answers that are coming to the fore are that we need all solutions in order to deliver that net zero ambition. Maybe some of you are thinking, well, I heard also from your feedback just now from Luke, you don't think we'll hit that target in 2050 of net greenhouse gas emissions. Now, I think that's a pretty sad state of affairs, because I'm hoping at the start of this day, by the end of the day, you will be hearing and talking amongst yourselves and with my panel colleagues about how you could. Because today we're going to be hearing the Green Party saying net zero greenhouse gases by 2030. The Climate Extinction Group would like you to have this all done by 2025. And as an engineer, I'm going, okay, that's really not going to happen by 2025. But when can it be? Now, the Committee on Climate Change, and also the commitment from the government, which is the big shining light of this last year, is that bringing into law that we will be embarking on that trajectory for net zero greenhouse gases by 2050. You know, they've got to have a game plan. They've got to have a clear view of what needs to be done. And the Committee on Climate Change have laid out over the next each 10 years for all the different sectors, not just for energy, but for your sectors, commercial, industry, businesses, what you have to be thinking about doing, but also farming, waste management, you know, agriculture in the whole widest sense, leading to food production. And one of the sad things in even hearing about that is that we still got another mountain to climb in changing public perception. And with the Greta effect and with potentially the wonderful storytelling of David Attenborough, who in his 90s is helping get into the fibres of our homes through some beautiful pictures on TV about the climate emergency, the growing swell that something has to be done faster and still in a way that delivers a modern society is really growing there. Now, I'm not naive enough as a CEO of REA thinking just our hard work and the panellists that we've convinced people. It is that effect. It is about that perception. So, you know, like in your businesses, when you come up with a great idea, but having a great idea isn't good enough. It's got to be at the right time, with the right people, in the right place. I would argue we are at that right time, where instead maybe in your businesses, you might still be having to be pushing against some locked doors to convince bosses and things like that, that it isn't just buying your power from a renewable supplier, which I'm hoping everybody in the room already does. Well, definitely stayed silent on that point. Or the fact that you're thinking of installing some form of renewable generation. I'm talking with a colleague walking here. Do we just fit solar panels or what? Or you've already got combined heat and power systems, or you've got an integrated solution for your customers, your clients, your manufacturing, using your building as a power station, taking advantage of the burgeoning flexibility market that's going to be arriving on our doorstep very soon, if we can get the regulator and our grid businesses all sorted out, sorry UKPN, to really show all those different opportunities of how you as businesses can make money. If we get all of those things sorted in the next 2 to 5 years, then all of a sudden your jobs as energy managers should become a lot simpler. Because the business case, even though I can tell you the business case is already there for deploying renewable power, maybe not so much as for renewable heat and also all the way through for transport yet, but definitely for renewable power, the economic case is made. It is cheaper. I'll share one of those moments that I had in my career. I've had quite a few moments in my career, like switching on a gas-fired power station that we built for 4 years in the Netherlands and having to frig it to come on the market to run. But that because the minister was coming to cut the red tape and then realising just shortly afterwards it was never going to run again because wholesale power prices had collapsed because of the Energiewende from Germany, and it sits there like a white elephant. So that was a moment that, we just spent 1.3 billion, but nobody had the courage to say, let's stop building it and let's not invest in such a technology which was having its day now. So the moment I'm mentioning is hearing a Secretary of State finally of the wonderful Conservative Party last October when he had to reply to the Committee on Climate Change, and that gentleman was Greg Clark, who said the cheapest power is green power. Did anybody clock that one in this room as well? Yeah, there's a few small nodding heads. I was sat down because if I hadn't been sat down, I would have fallen down because I would never have thought of hearing that because we were still bargaining, coaching, trying to persuade that was really going to happen. And since that time, things have accelerated. Now, am I saying it's going to be easy? I said we were in the foothills of these mountains to net greenhouse gas aspects. Well, we have to sort out the regulator. We have to ensure that the next government isn't just saying that climate emergency as a greenwash, a rhetoric, and politely keep kicking the can down that road. So you can see on our high-level Big Five asks, and Boris Johnson, and I'll give him his full name, just because he is the Prime Minister, he already said a few days ago that he was going to chair, a cabinet committee to coordinate across all the different departments for focusing on that climate emergency and wants to support, the in line for delivering the different carbon budgets, the 5th, the 6th, the 7th and onwards. Also, we just heard that Treasury are going to introduce a net zero Treasury test. So we want that to have teeth so that any of the departments who invest in anything, whether it's the NHS, new homes, infrastructure, supporting you in the infrastructure that your businesses will need, has to pass that net zero test. That if you're building a new hospital, guess what? It needs to be a zero carbon hospital of the future. Not wait till 2025 when we know the Treasury are going to be saying that, because it can be done. The other part is we do need the regulator to not only think about, and I'm talking about Ofgem here, to not only be thinking about consumer protection, which is vitally important, because we want to deliver an energy system that brings everybody all the way through to enjoy what renewable energy and clean tech can offer, is that they have to have that broader mandate, and they need to be able to ensure that technology neutral, which is the thing that most regulators hide behind, is suddenly pushed to one side because it's got to be a net zero future approach. So maybe the question is there around if any of you have invested in gas peakers for managing your backup plant. Watch out, carbon intensity measures need to come into play rather than annualised carbon emissions. So that's on the cards for the future. And also local authorities, because your businesses sit within different local authorities. And they are all working hard to deliver a white label energy company, supply company that benefits all of the people living within their boundaries and businesses too, and I think we've got a few people here for that. But also there's still some local authorities who haven't even got going yet, and they're asking those questions, what should we prioritise and do? Well, my answer to that would be tackle efficiencies in the homes and ensure that the businesses, that they get some beneficial business rates if they can demonstrate that their buildings that they're operating in, never mind having renewable tech, are already energy efficient. So local authorities need to have some ring-fenced funding to be able to progress this. And our last high-level ask, and it'd be interesting to hear your views, because I've had a few wrangles with lots of different trade unions, because some trade unions are trying to dictate what the energy future should be, because they're based on very large, big assets, like the power stations I used to manage. You know, I was a member of a trade union until I left the power industry, because there they can see a big asset with a hierarchical team delivering this, all at different levels of skills, all needing to have to argue a fair salary and a fair reward for the work that they do. And renewable technologies have been quite disruptive. Even in the tech sector, as we'll probably hear later, they're entrepreneur, 2 to 5 people working in those companies, growing into much larger organisations, and they're not that unionised, are they? So to have a trade union say that it must only be nuclear, or even challenging our burgeoning offshore wind sector by saying, come on, you've got to guarantee so many jobs for delivering that. We have to find an accord which allows us to grow that skilled base that we desperately need to take advantage of what a future based on renewable energy and clean technologies could afford us to be those world leaders. So if I was going to ask you to be thinking, I'd be interested in your feedback on some of those. But also, as you're thinking about the energy management of your businesses and how you want to move forward, bear all those different things in mind. Some of them will be more important to you than less. But the one that would benefit everybody in society is definitely to think about how do we grow those skills. You guys are probably quite excited by it. And when I mean guys, I mean men and women. I've always been called a guy or a chap. So forgive me for that, ladies. Think about what embracing a new future that delivers this net zero aspect and what your business can benefit from, not just from market leadership, attracting new consumers or customers, but think about how smart your people could be if you take them all with you and anticipate that skilling up that needs to be done now. So those are my 5 high-level asks. But as you will know, the devil will be in the detail. And I think the panel and myself will go into a bit more detail about those things. And if you want to know more, then please do have a look at our manifesto. It's on our website. The last thing I wanted to highlight before I completely finish is we just produced this report, Flexible Futures. There is a paper copy on each table, not this one. I'll drop this one on later. And why is this report interesting? Lots of people model what the future looks like, but this is actually based on data of everything that's happened on the distributed network system since 2012. It tells us how many people have switched, how many people are engaged with a green provider, how many organisations are linked with not only getting a green provider but are engaged with low carbon technologies themselves. And there's a few pages in here which talks about the commercial and industrial space, because that's why I started off by calling you the untapped potential, because you've not done very much as a sector so far. Yeah. So, in terms of switching, quite a few have moved on to green suppliers, But in terms of having low carbon technologies installed and things like that, not so hot. Just have a look on page 52 if you really want to know, or you can download the whole report from off our website. We're going to be producing this report every year with Electrolink, who provide us the MPAN data in a global way. Don't worry, GDPR, we can't name and shame the individual companies, although I'd like to, but never mind. But it really just shows that businesses and industry are going to be some of the biggest untapped potentials for making a difference for delivering a net zero future. Thank you.